What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego back with some more boxing. So, in honor of Throwback Thursday, I have my latest topic and I want to take it back. Take it back to boxing's greatest showman. Now, when I was making this top 9 list, very hard because you have to think of boxing in its entirety. And I use different factors to consider and appoint the positions and that kind of thing. So, some of it's showmanship, some of it's impact. There's a lot of different things that I factored in when I made the list. I think I have a very solid list. Anytime you do a list in general, not everyone's going to agree with you. But if you don't, fuck it. Make your own list. But this is just the ego list. Top 9 showmen in the sport of boxing. And like I said, there's no way to appease everyone. So I'm just going to go with my list. Try to blow through this. Give you my reasons. And in at number 9, I have Emanuel Burton, a.k.a. Emanuel Augustus. So if you remember the Floyd Mayweather interview prior to Cotto, he stated Emanuel Augustus was his toughest opponent that he's ever faced. And he has some credible names from Castillo to Corrales, and the list goes on and on and on. He picked Emanuel Burton. One of the reasons he picked that is because Emanuel Augustus had a certain style. It was off rhythm, off beat, very hard to time. Anytime someone's like really herky-jerky, it becomes harder to get their patterns because in essence, there is no pattern. It's just like a schizophrenic. You don't know their next move based on they don't think with the regular human logic. Some of the, like if you're really clinically insane, 5150, you don't know the difference between right or wrong. For that reason, it becomes hard to time. And that's something that Mayweather is typically good at. Emanuel Augustus was a hell of a showman. He fought in a drunken monkey type style. I remember watching a fight where he got punched, like it was a nice punch, flush, and his head turned, and then he just started Harlem shaking like, oh shit, that didn't faze me. And he just did it so smooth. He would dance. Very hard, very, very difficult style to go up against because you didn't know what he was going to do. He started shuffling his feet or doing the Tootsie Roll, all kinds of stuff in the middle of the fight, mid-fight, and he can transition from that to offense, which was really, really something to be marveled at. So I have him at number 9. In at number 8, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitikar. Growing up, one of my favorites, one of the most defensively sound fighters, great fighter. Sweet Pea really set the blueprint for defensive fighters. He was one of the pioneers, I guess you could say. From his fight with Chavez, we all know how that ended up. He's just a master at what he does, and he would frustrate opponents. He would literally frustrate them because he was so slick. He was so defensively sound. I remember watching a video one time where he had the guy kind of in the headlock, and then he used his left hand and reached around his back and punched the dude, like just to, I guess, to fuck with him. So Sweet Pea, you definitely got to put him on the list of all-time showmen. And again, he incorporated that defense into the game plan, which made him more of a complete fighter. And I'm going to try to put some of the links to some highlights for you guys in the description. So in at number 7, Iron Mike Tyson. Now, Tyson, to me, he was a showman for a different reason because he had brute force. And anytime he did an interview, you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth. You never knew what to expect. I remember he was answering a ton of questions from mostly male reporters. Then a female was asking him a question, and he was like, I don't do interviews with females unless they're gonna fornicate. So what's up? You gonna fornicate or what? Like out of nowhere, where did that even come from? To the Lennox Lewis rant or praise be Allah, like all that. Tyson was pretty much boxing's bad boy, loose cannon, scuffles with Lennox Lewis, biting Evander Holyfield's ear. He could sell a fight, and if it weren't those antics, he could sell it just with pure entertainment. He was a knockout artist. People feared his power. He hit like a ton of bricks. So Mike Tyson, you got to put him in on the list because he was a showman. Not for the conventional reasons, but definitely a showman and one of my all-time favorites. So slightly above Tyson, I have Sugar Ray Leonard. Sugar Ray Leonard, he was America's sweetheart. Everybody loved Sugar Ray Leonard. Clean cut. He took on tough fights. Robert Duran, Berto Duran, Hagler. He had the Muhammad Ali shuffle he would incorporate, vicious combination puncher, and he was just an all-American kind of role model. and people looked up to Sugar Ray Leonard, and I see a lot of they emulate little things that Sugar Ray did. Sugar Ray definitely got to go on the list. In at number 5, Hector Camacho. I had to put him on the list. Hector Camacho was one of those fighters where what he did transcended boxing in general. He did stuff for Puerto Rico as a whole, Puerto Ricans. He made it cool to be a boxer. I mean, from the flashy trunks with the kind of the tassels, the gold chains, he had the curl in the front. Hector Camacho was that dude. Again, he brought that finesse, that swag, and he has a solid resume. He was a good fighter. He was a good fighter, and he knew how to talk. He's from the streets, so he had that little bit of street cred, street swag to him. And he did an infamous interview, I think it was with Larry Merchant, where he said the N-word. He's like, all y'all niggas can get it. And it was controversial at the time. A lot of people were like, oh, did he just say that? He said nigger. Like, he said nigga. He didn't say nigger. But Hector Camacho got to go on the list. He is to boxing what Big Pun is to Puerto Ricans for rap. Hector Camacho, without a doubt, from his boxing skill to just how cool he was. Rest in peace, Hector Camacho. Got to put him on the list. So in at number 4, Prince Naseem Hamed. Growing up, one of my favorites. From his ring entrances, one time he did kind of like a thriller entrance. He would do a flip over the turnbuckle, over the ropes, toy with opponents, act like he was hurt and shuffle his feet. And he just overall put on a show. He had a level of athleticism in that weight division, and he made it cool. I would say he's one of the first people to make it really cool to fight in the lower weight divisions. A lot of times in the early 90s, late 80s, the heavyweight division was where it's at. You had Tommy Morrison, you had Tyson, Lennox Lewis, Shannon Briggs. There was a lot of people, Vander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, and a lot of the action was in the higher weight divisions. I would say Prince Naseem Hamed made a spotlight on the lower weight divisions where you generally wanted to see him. You wanted to hear him after the fight. Very cocky, very much a showboat inside and outside of the ring. And he would entertain. He knew how to entertain fans. He got in there with Marco Antonio Barrera, and that was kind of near the end for him. Overall, he was just an awesome showman. There's nothing else you could really say. And again, I like the fact of his impact on the lower weight divisions. Now you see guys like Pacquiao who've come up from the lower weight divisions and they're international stars. You see guys like Nonito Donaire who fan-friendly style, and there's a lot of excitement. Now you can have people from the lighter divisions headlining a fight, which has not always been the case. In at number 3, I got to put my boy Pensacola, Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones, another one of my favorites growing up. RJ, he knew how to talk. He talked slick, talked fast. I remember an interview with Larry Merchant. This was after he avenged his loss to Montel Griffin, which truthfully wasn't really a loss. He hit a downed opponent and was DQ'd for it. He set the record straight by rematching him immediately, knocked him out in the first round with a vicious shot out of nowhere. He would hit you from the fucking angles were ridiculous. And Larry Merchant was like, do you feel you had it? He's like, didn't I just tell you that? Sometimes you got to do that. Like, he just talked fast. You wanted to watch him. He was probably one of the most athletic fighters ever. A freak of nature, played basketball, would box, very athletically gifted, speed. He had power. He couldn't be fucked with. I remember his fight with Vinny Pazienza. I got the Roy Jones Jr. greatest hits. They were going at it, and they were both taunting each other. Obviously, Roy Jones Jr. was the better man. And he was a hell of a fighter. That's all I could say. A lot of people reflect now on Roy Jones Jr. as he is today, kind of a shell of his former self. But I like to remember Roy Jones in his prime. And if you think about him in his prime, one of the best showmen that boxing has ever seen, and one of the most gifted athletes that boxing has ever seen. In at number 2, Floyd, pretty boy, Floyd Money Mayweather. You got to put him. Floyd Mayweather took the showmanship to another level, from his trash talk to his HBO 24/7, now All Access. He really spun the business around and made boxing a certified business. There's other fighters that were eating, that made money. Mike Tyson, the money came and went. Chavez Sr., a lot of fighters that made some money in the sport of boxing. De La Hoya. But nobody has really given the boxing a facelift like Floyd Mayweather. He made it a business. People know Mayweather. They know the Mayweather brand. He's his own boss. And this all started from Floyd Mayweather just being a charismatic character inside and outside of the ring. Floyd Mayweather has to go number 2 just for his overall impact on the sport of boxing, his ability to sell tickets. Floyd Mayweather has embraced the villain role like no other. It's just like wrestling. I remember certain wrestlers would come out and at first they're good guys, and then they turn into quote unquote bad guys, like Hulk Hogan, and all of a sudden he's a badass. Before he was America's hero and everyone's cheering him. And then he starts coming out. Everybody fucking hates him. They're throwing garbage and trash can and Capri Suns and shit at him. That's what Floyd Mayweather's done. He's taken this villain role since the De La Hoya fight and ran with it. He makes people absolutely hate him. They hate what he does. They hate what he stands for. They hate how flamboyant he is. But guess what? It puts money in his pockets and it keeps him relevant. So I got to put him in at number 2 just because he's the guy you love to hate. And whether you hate him or love him, you still watch him. Now for my number 1 pick, this was a no-brainer for me. Muhammad Ali. I have to have the list topped off with Muhammad Ali. From classic fights to, there's just certain imagery that boxing fans relate to. You can go to boxing gyms and see certain Muhammad Ali fights, classic shots. They're on t-shirts. Muhammad Ali stands for boxing. He called himself the greatest. He has classic quotes. He says, I was telling people I was the greatest before I even knew I was the greatest. Muhammad Ali, he also had a daughter who fought. So boxing is in his blood. He knew how to sell a fight. He knew how to piss his opponents off. He knew how to get in their head. And really, he's like the godfather of this whole shit. If there were no Muhammad Ali, would we have a Roy Jones Jr.? Would we have a Floyd Mayweather or a Hector Camacho, Prince Naseem? He is, to me, one of the pioneers of boxing showmanship. He is one of the pioneers of boxing showmanship, without a doubt. He made it cool to be a boxer. He made reporters and just the media want to talk about him. He was one of the people, I'm not saying he's the first, but he was definitely one of the first people to patent the rhyme scheme. Well, like, if he wants to be great, I'll beat him in 8. Like, in all the rhymes and all kinds of stuff. Muhammad Ali is the greatest, man. You got to put him up there. One of the best showmen that boxing has ever seen. And he possessed the skills to pay the bills as well. And like I said, this list was very hard to make. There's been a lot of great showmen that the world of boxing has seen. So there's some honorable mentions. People like Sergio Martinez. I think he puts on shows for the fan. Look at the Chavez Jr. fight. He went out on the shield and won the fight. In the 12th round, he could have stopped swinging and really succumbed to the vicious shots that Chavez Jr. was landing, but he kept fighting. Also, Adrien Broner, if we're talking about new school, Adrien Broner is working on his legacy. He's working on his path. And similar to Mayweather, he makes people pissed off. He evokes emotion, and he sells the fight. Whether he has the Maidana performance or not, his trash talk, talking shit to Paulie Malignaggi or Broner, it generates interest. And people make tons of memes after he loses or whatever, but people are still talking. Other people like Joe Calzaghe, who was just recently inducted into the Hall of Fame. You can throw him on the list. Bernard, the Executioner Hopkins, now the Alien. Got to throw Bernard Hopkins on the honorable mention list. He's done a lot, from taunting opponents and wearing the mask, the Executioner mask or the Alien mask. Says he has alien blood. He knows how to speak and create an interest and an intrigue in himself. Johnny Tapia, gotta throw Tapia, rest in peace, on the honorable mention list. And a ton of other fighters. So if I forgot anybody or anyone you would like to add, throw them on the list. Shoot me a comment. Let me know who you guys think. So let me know what you guys think of my list. Do you disagree with it? Would you move a couple people around? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.